Hi, Ursula. It's great to have you with us. First of all, I was able to meet Ursula through another Facebook group, and I saw her post with about coming on podcasts and stuff. So we connected for about 20 minutes, had a great conversation, and I know you have a lot you could share. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I know you have a lot that's happened to you in your journey. So let's just start with where you are today and exactly what you're doing.
Thank you, Jon, and thank you for having me on your podcast. Right now, I am living in Franklin, Tennessee. I've been here for a year and a half, and this is the first time I've been back on the mainland in the last 10 years, because before this, I was on Oahu, Hawaii for 8 years and then Guam for 2 years. And no, my husband is not military. We're not a military family. We always get that because people are like, why would you live on Guam? But he is a project manager for a large construction company, and they do get a lot of military contracts. So we've been living the island life for the last 10 years. And now I'm in Tennessee, landlocked. And it was definitely a struggle. But I think that this next year, now it's been a year and a half, so this next year is going to be easier, because I feel like I had to go through that, like a grieving process, basically, from transitioning from a more go with the flow, chill island lifestyle to back to the mainland, where it's like hustle, bustle, and just a more masculine type energy here. But I have brought my go with the flow vibe. So I am I'm pulling through, but definitely over the winter months, even though it doesn't really snow here, I did tell my husband I do not want to move somewhere where it for real snows, because I grew up on coasts, so I've always been by an ocean. So that's another thing too, where I'm like, I'm landlocked. I've never been landlocked my whole life. So the winter months, although it doesn't for real snow, was tough for me because I felt like I was closed in. And I actually went through a seasonal depression, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually real. Like, people really go through this. I went through it, where I was in bed for like 2 days and I just didn't want to get out of bed. It was tough, but thankfully, due to the support of my husband, just being like, okay, you got to get up and go take a shower, and like, at least let's just like go walk around the store or something. And I've always had a positive mindset in pulling myself out of the darkness somehow, some way. I say sometimes that, like, I must have guardian angels and spirit guides surrounding me, because whenever I've been in a dark place, somehow I like pull myself out of it, and find the positive within it. So, and that's been in any transition that I've gone through in my life.
So what kind of dark places have you experienced then?
So I would say when I was young, so I grew up with a single mom. My parents divorced when I was 5, and it was just me and my sister. And so we lived primarily with my mom, and we would see my dad. But as I'm the first child, so generally speaking, the first child has this perfection persona, and and myself, like, I tried to be perfect, and I put a lot of pressure on myself and wanted to be all the things that my parents, specifically my mom, wanted me to be. So the first dark place I was in was when I was in 5th grade. I got in trouble at school, because that was back in, I don't know, I'm in my early 40s. So that was back in the day when everybody was like, the guys were wearing the baggy pants, and you could kind of like see their underwear, like the baggy pants era, right? And so all my friends were like, oh my gosh, pull his pants down, pull his pants down. And I just was like, okay. And because the guy's pants were so baggy and low. So I pulled, and he was like one of our really good friends, but I pulled his pants down, and obviously you should not be doing that in school. And so the teacher like talked to me, and at first he was like, I'm not going to tell your parents. And like, but of course he ended up calling my mom, and I'm obviously a girl and he was a boy, and I pulled his pants down. And so my mom like freaked out on me. And basically I was like grounded for life from what she said. And so that, like, I had never been in like that much trouble before. And just all that pressure of feeling like I did something wrong, like really like got to me. And so my mom she had back problems. So she had chronic pain and she had pain pills. And so I went into her bathroom and she had Demerol. And so I took the Demerol pills, took a couple of pills out, put the pill box back. I went into the bathroom and I like stood in front of the toilet with these pills in my hand, like wanting to take them because I just felt so like unloved and like I messed up, and I even freaking wrote a letter about like what friends could get what clothes if I ended up like really dying from taking these pills. So it was like my little suicide note. And I put the pills in my mouth, but I was again standing in front of the toilet. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, what if these don't actually like kill me? Then I'm going to go to the hospital. I'm like all these thoughts, then I'm going to go to the hospital and get my stomach pumped. Then I'm going to get even more trouble. Like, then what is everyone going to think? And I'm going to be like, my mom's going to feel shame. And I'm just like, and then I can start to feel them dissolving in my mouth and they taste disgusting. And I just was going through all this contemplation in 5th grade. So I was like 10 years old. And then I ended up spitting them out in the toilet. And then I ended up, I think the next day or something, telling my mom. And then I went to therapy because of that. And I think more so instead of like I wasn't going to actually commit suicide, but it was like a cry for help. Like I was feeling so unloved that I wanted to like not be here anymore. So I went to the therapist and she eventually, after a few sessions, she had said to my mom, I don't think your daughter is going to like harm herself. I think the issue is between you and her. Like you're not on the same page and like you're kind of pushing her to this level of like feeling not loved. And my mom, like, God love her. She's now passed away. She's been passed away for 4 years, but she can't handle that. Like she couldn't handle being told like it was her. So really from there, I never necessarily like tried to take my life again, but that's where my programming started with like that feeling of unloved. Like I felt unloved. I wasn't feeling loved. And partly I do believe I put this pressure on myself, but also being the oldest child and and having a single parent, I'm sure unknowingly my mom put that pressure on me a little bit too. And not necessarily that it's her fault. It's just that's all she knew. Right. So then, and also growing up, like I said, my mom had that pain medication because she had chronic back issues. So the other thing is whenever my mom would have to have a surgery or something, I was always the one that stepped up and like helped take care of her and do things. And I had my sister too, but my sister was more like if there was a conflict, she was more to shut down. And I was more the, okay, let's do this. I got to figure this out. How can we make this situation better? So it was a lot of pressure and kind of like a parentified childhood that I had. And then going to college, I, whenever there was a spring break or something fun that I was going to do, that's when my mom would like schedule like a surgery. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I would not be able to do the fun stuff. I would go home to take care of my mom. And then, so back to college, I dated a guy through college. And again, when you're in college, you kind of like date the same guy, break up, date again, the same guy. Well, anyway, this was my second like pivotal like moment in my life where I could have taken a different route. But I found out after like years I think we dated pretty much the whole 4 years we were in college together. And so I found out that he was like cheating on me the whole entire time. So when we were broken up, whatever, but when we were together, like he was still cheating on me. So then all those feelings of being like deceived and like, how did I not know this? Because when you go to college, you kind of hang out with the same group of people. Everybody knows everybody. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what if other people knew and they didn't tell me? Like, like that was like horrible to me, because I'm like, I'm not like a stupid person. Like I should have like figured this out sooner. So I was in another dark place there just because I felt, again, unloved. That came up again where I'm like, I'm deceived. Like, why can't I freaking find somebody that's like trustworthy? And that is going to like not bullshit me and lie or, not, so it was adding again to that story that I was creating throughout my life. So with that, I decided I'm going to take a year of like working on myself. And that was when I was in my early 20s. And part of this story too is the reason why I say I could have taken a different route is, so my mom and dad had a really like bad marriage, and my mom was pretty much like man hater. And she tried to instill in my sister and I, like, make sure you always have your own bank account, your own money, like be very independent, and like, don't let a man take advantage of you and all these things. Right. And so here I go through this situation now where I was cheated on, didn't know, I was deceived, which goes along with what she was teaching us about men. However, I said, I am not going to take this one situation and then take it into all the relationships that I go into, because this is just because this happened to me. And this is basically what my mom has been telling me about men my whole entire life. And then it happens, but I chose to not be like a man hater, quote unquote, so to say. And instead I chose to take a year to just connect with myself. And I remember like praying. I was like, God, please just like one day, like let me meet the person that is going to like be true and honest and like really love me for who I am. And don't allow me to like bring this into future relationships. And I just feel like that was a real pivotal moment, because again, the story that I was grown up, programmed to live by was that like men they just want one thing and they're going to take advantage of you and be independent and all that. And not to say that like you shouldn't be independent, but it was a more negative mindset that my mom was instilling in us. And again, I don't fault her for that either, because that's her story and that's what she went through. And I see it as her she was trying to protect us. It just wasn't necessarily the healthiest way to go about it. So fast forward, that was like my early 20s, say 22-ish, 26. I ended up meeting my husband, and he literally showed up on my doorstep to go on a date with my roommate.
No.
So my roommate was out one night, saw this guy, and she was actually with another guy, but she saw this guy and she went up to him and she gave him her card. Because again, back in the day, you gave people your card to be like, here's my card, call me sometime, which I always thought was so funny. But so he actually ended up calling her, and I was so cute. I'm like, I got to see what this guy looks like, because I got to be home when he comes to pick her up, because her spectrum of guys was like from one end to the other. You weren't sure like what was this guy going to be like. So I got home and she was getting ready. He knocked on the door and I opened the door, and automatically, like in my head, I said, this is my guy. Like he is my type. And him and I just started talking, and we're just like having major conversation, and she's like getting ready. They go And I call my sister, I called my mom, I called my best friend. I'm like, you guys, she's going out with this guy. He's my type. And then she ended up calling me from the bathroom and she was like, he's so boring. And I'm like, yeah, he's my type. And she's like, yeah, he's totally your type.
That's great.
And so it was crazy though, how, like it's not to say that I didn't believe in love at first sight, because people say that, but you're kind of like, I don't know about that, like, come on. So it's not that I didn't believe in that, but when it actually happened, when I opened the door and you like feel this connection, it was just this energetic, like, he's my guy. Like, it is what it is. So now I tell friends that are single, I'm like, you never know, you're the right guy or girl might show up at your front door. Like, you might know. So now I've been married for 14 years. We just celebrated our 14-year anniversary. Yeah, and he definitely is everything that I asked for. So again, going back to that, like, I have my spirit guides and angels and God, and that's what I choose to believe, surrounding me and guiding me. Because again, I could have taken the bad road, right? I could have, or the road that's not the greatest road with how I was programmed and what I was being told. But something inside of me always knew, like, no, there's got to be a better way. Just looking at things in a more positive light. And then, I ended up having 2 children. I got 2 boys. And in being with my husband, like I said in the beginning, we lived on the Pacific Ocean. So we moved around. When I met him, he said, I work for this company and we're probably going to be moving around a lot. So if you're not down with that, then, it's not going to work. And I was like, no, I would love that, because remember, I said I never got to freaking go anywhere because I always had to help my mom. So I'm like, yeah, let's go wherever, right? I'm ready to do it. So we met in Florida, and then we lived in California for a short period of time. And then we did the island life thing. So with moving so much, I kind of had to reinvent myself in regards to my business. So I went to school and I got degrees in psychology and mental health counseling. And I was working on my licensure in Florida when we ended up moving to California. And I wasn't done with all my hours to get licensed yet in Florida. And I thought, oh, no big deal. Like, I'll just transfer everything over to California. Well, California has a whole different set of rules. I was going to have to take more classes, and I wasn't sure how long we were going to be in California. And I thought, if I go back and take more college courses and then start all over again with my licensing hours, and then we move again, and then I got to do that again wherever else we move, I'm like, that's not going to work. Like, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I decided to not go forth with getting licensed as a counselor. And instead, I really got involved in fitness and seeing how, like, fitness was also related to mental health as well, right? To, wellness and holistic approach. And a lot of people that want a personal trainer, or that get into like going to the gym and working out for weight loss or whatever their goal may be, a lot of times there's baggage and things underneath all of that. So I got my certification in personal training. I got a wellness coaching certification. And so that's what I started doing, because I thought that's good with anywhere we go, I can do that. So that started in California. And then when we lived in Guam and in Oahu, Hawaii, I had fitness related businesses. So the other huge major life transition, which takes me to kind of where I am now, is my mom was living in Florida. When we lived in Hawaii, I said, why don't you come and move to Hawaii? I had 2 little boys. And I wanted them to be close to a grandparent. and my husband's family is in Kansas, and they've lived there forever. So they're not like going to move to Hawaii, where my mom is like single, living in Florida. And she had always said, like, whenever you guys figure out exactly where you're going to live, I'm going to come like live with you guys. And then it got to a point where we don't really know where we're going to live. So just come to Hawaii. So we had a home that we made. We had like this studio that was about 300 square foot. And since my husband is in construction, we renovated to make it like a mother-in-law suite. And so, because that was one of the things, like, I want you to live with me, but you got to have your own space. And she wanted that too. She's like, I need my own space. So she came, and this was 2019. So she came, she had her space. It was like really awesome. And then it was so good to just have her interacting with the boys. And the one thing that like my husband was always like, I can't believe how you and your mom are compared to his family. So his family's Kansas, Midwest. They're a little bit more reserved, and they don't, like, if there's something going on, they might not talk about it. Like, and my family, my mom and her side of the family they're all New Yorkers. And I mean, I kind of grew up around that. And so if something's going on, we're going to say it. Like, we're just going to say, like, this is the problem. And my husband would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys talk to each other like that. But that's what makes it work. Because if she's going to come live with me and I can't tell her what I'm annoyed about, and she can't tell me, then I don't like that. It's like there's this elephant in the room, right? And no one's talking about it. So sometimes, like, I'm like, I can't handle it. Just like get it out on the table and say, what's the problem? So that actually, he now realizes that is a good thing, to just let it out. No matter what, just let it out. So I think that's why it also was going to work for her to live with us, because she could just tell me what her issue is, and I could just tell her, we figure it out, and it's done. Plus she had her own space in our home. So the great thing was that it was like she moved there and her whole world opened up. She had friends, and she was volunteering at the library. She was going to the Catholic church across the street. She had like such a life there, because she used to say to me, Ursula, I'm alive, but I don't feel like I'm living. She used to say that to me all the time. And it used to just break my heart, because that sucks, like, you want to feel fulfilled in life. And she put everything into my sister and I. So she never, like, because she had that man hater mentality, she never dated. She was way independent, wasn't gonna, sacrifice anything that she wanted or to do for anyone else. So she was just like single, and in Florida, she had her family, but nothing really outside of that. So moving to Oahu, she just lit up, like had a life, and then also just being so grateful to be around her grandkids. And I enjoyed that as well. So my mom ended up passing away after only living with us for 8 months. And and so it was completely unexpected. She had her back issues, she had fibromyalgia, she had asthma, she had things, but nothing that you think is just going to like take your life away. It's not like we went through this cancer thing, or something that I knew she was going to pass away. So what happened was, we were decorating for Christmas, and she was decorating her mother-in-law suite, and we were decorating our house, and she comes into our house, and she's like, Ursula, you're never going to believe what happened to me. I'm like, what? And she was pulling a box down from a shelf in like this little closet that we made for her. And the box hit the fan blade, and the fan blade came and knocked her in the back. And I was like, thank goodness it didn't hit you in the head. And she was like, I wish it would have hit me in the head, because now my back is going to be out for a few days. So, and this is the thing, because again, I'm programmed for my mom to have back pain. She's programmed to have her back pain. She's going to be out in bed, laid up for a few days. That's just what we're thinking. So neither of us said, well, why don't we go to the doctor? Or why don't we do this? Nothing. She just put an ice pack on. took some pain pills, and was going about the day. The next day, she had texted me and was like, can you let my dog, she had a dog, can you let the dog out? Because I didn't get a good night's sleep last night. I could barely sleep. I was in a lot of pain. So I'm like going to go to sleep. So can you deal with my dog? And I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. Sleep. And so later on in the afternoon, she did get up and she had dinner with us. And again, I think her and I both were just like, it's just, this is normal. It's kind of what we're used to. Eventually in a couple of days, she'll start to feel better. So we had dinner, and then she went, back, she went in her place and went to sleep. And the next morning, she didn't text me or anything. And the next morning I noticed that her light was on in her place. And so I opened the door and I looked in, and she was laying in bed. She was sleeping. She looked a little odd to me. Like she looked pale and she was breathing like a little weird. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to disturb her because she hasn't been able to sleep well since she's been in a lot of pain. So I'm just going to like leave her alone. And I let the dog come into our house, and I just left her alone, even though I thought something was a little weird, like, cause she looked really pale and she was breathing heavily kind of, but she was sleeping. And I'm like, I'm just going to leave her alone. So I go about my day. I'm in and out of the house all day. I pick up my boys, we come home, they grab a snack, and I was leaving because I had a hair appointment. And I stood by her doorway and I thought I should open the door and check on her. And I was just, I mean, I can like visualize this like it was yesterday, standing there, and something came over me, just go. Like I heard the words, just go. So I left with the boys, dropped them off at my girlfriend's house, which she was going to watch them anyway. Cause I said, listen, my mom doesn't feel good. So can you watch the boys? I asked her a couple days before. Drop them off. I go to the hair place. I text my husband. I don't think mom's gotten out of her like place all day. And he's like, well, she's probably okay. Just check on her. But something inside of me was like, something's not right. So the first thing I did when I got home was I opened the door, and I could tell she was gone. She was laying in her bed still, but she was gone. She was a grayish color. Of course, I freaked out. And I called 911 right away. And I'm like, my mom is gone. Like, she's gone. Somebody needs to come here. And they're like, you need to go touch her. And I'm like, I can't go touch her because I'm like, I'm telling you, she's not alive. And they're like, no. And so I like did not even want to walk in there, but I did. I touched her and I'm like, she's ice cold. And I like bolted out of there. So then I had the paramedics, the freaking police, the fire people, like everybody at my house. My boys were hiding under the table because they were kind of freaked out. And so the paramedic came in, and I went back into the room, and he was like, I can tell your mom passed like in her sleep, because she was laying in bed like as if she was sleeping. He's like, this happened to my grandfather. Just know that she went peacefully. And I'm like, you probably have to tell me, you're just telling me that, like in my head, because I went into go mode. Like, I'm like, what do I have to do? Like that, like, what do I need to do? And then the cops came to make sure too that it wasn't like a crime scene. So they had to come and check everything out. So I have like 4 cops in my house. And I'm like, I called my sister to tell her, and then I'm a trainer, right? So I had started a Strong Mommy Camp, and I'm sitting there texting everybody like, Strong Mommy Camp is canceled. Like my mom, I went into just do, what do I have to do to like block what was actually happening in my house? And I'm asking the cops, I'm like, what do I do? Like, I don't like, do I have to call a mortuary? Like, I had no idea. So they told me everything. I called the mortuary, and like, I couldn't go back into the room. And the morgue people said that they would be like an hour before they could come and take her body. And I just was sitting in our house, and I'm like, I have to go back in there. I have to like see her before they actually take her body. And that was honestly the best thing I could have done for myself. I went in there, and we grew up with your body is a temple. Like, you're not like, your soul lives on, your body is a temple. That's what we were always taught. My mom, we talked about death. It was an open conversation. My mom used to say, when I die, I'm going to be around you. Just, you know, if the cabinet doors are open or something and you thought you closed them, that was me. Open them up. Or, you know, she always used to just say, like, I'm going to be around you whenever I die. And so I went in there and I looked at her body and I'm like, wow, like, she's not there. That's not her. Like, she's gone. Like, it really was like, this is just a capsule that we are in. And she was not there anymore. So even though that whole experience was very traumatic, that was healing right away for me. Cause I'm like, she's not there. Like, she's gone. And the other part that was healing for me was to know that she was no longer in pain. You know, she, not only did she have physical pain, obviously she had mental pain. She was depressed and she had PTSD just from what she had gone through with my dad and things. So that I tried to focus on that, you know, like, she's no longer in physical or mental pain. And that night it was hard for me to sleep because I just was like a hot mess. And I had so much pain in between my brow point just from like crying. And my husband kept like, I just kept tossing and turning in bed. He's like, you need to try to sleep. I'm like, yeah, I know. So I was like, I'm going to have to take ibuprofen. So I went and took some ibuprofen just to help with the pain. So then when I closed my eyes, it wouldn't hurt so bad. And I felt like somebody took their hand and rubbed my forehead down to my cheek, like to like caress my face. And instantly I fell asleep. So I like to believe like that was my mom being like, it's okay, just go to sleep. So of course, my friends and family were like, you should go to counseling. That was like super traumatic what you went through. And I have a counseling background because I went to school for that. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think that I need to go to counseling. What I wanted to do was I wanted to connect with my mom through someone who could connect with the spiritual realm. So for me, I'm like, I want to go to a medium. And my sister wanted to go to one too. So my mom passed away in December 2019, January 2020, we go to this medium. The whole way on the drive there, I'm like, I'm talking to my mom. I'm like, you better show up. And I was like looking in the car, I'm like driving and I'm like looking in the passenger seat, like she's with me. I'm like, you need to show up. Like, I need you to be there. So I walk into the medium's place and she tells me, I don't know who you're here for, but I'm just going to let you know that like, I can't call in spirits. It's whoever comes. And I said, okay. And all she knew about me was my name. And, and I appreciated that she was like, listen, I don't know who you're here for, but don't try to tell me to call somebody in, cause I can't do that. Like, I can't do that. And I said, okay, no problem. So she said, well, whoever you're here for, she said, when you walked through the door, somebody came in with you. And it was a woman, a motherly figure. She has short hair. I mean, she described my mom like to a T. And she said, and she looks like you. And my mom and I look more alike. My sister takes more of my dad's side of the family. And of course I lost it. And then pivotal moment here, she said, she's bringing up hair. She's showing me blonde hair. She's bringing up hair. And I'm like, what is she bringing up hair, blonde hair? And my sister's like, Ursula, you went to freaking go get your hair cut that day and you heard just go. And I was like, oh my gosh. Coming back to how my mom always screwed me over, where I couldn't go freaking spring break, or she'd get sick on my birthday or something. My mom had to be gone at that point because when I found her, her body was cold. She was already like turning grayish blue. So, and it had only been a couple hours that I was gone. So I started laughing so hard when my sister reminded me about the hair and that I heard just go, because my mom was probably like, just go get your hair done, because I don't want to hear you bitching at me that at the end of my life, you didn't get your hair done. Go get your hair done. I'm gone, Ursula. Just go do what you got to do. And then I'm like, yep, my hair looked good for her funeral when I had to talk about her. And so that's like, that is what I needed. That is what I needed to hear. And those are things that are not Googleable. Like, I didn't tell anybody, I didn't put on social media that like, oh, I was getting my hair done and I heard just go when I walked out the door. So those are things like nobody would have known that other than like my sister and my husband, you know? So that's what was like healing for me. And I truly feel that my mom has been with me from that. Like, I mean, she's been with me obviously my whole life, but like now even more so. And the thing that has been so crazy, and what I would say to people who maybe don't feel love like from their parents or somebody, is that now that she's gone, like the love that I feel from her is out of this world. And there's a part of me that wishes I felt that when she was here, because I know she had it for me. She just didn't maybe know like fully how to show that because of all her stuff that she was going through. But I never faulted her for that, you know, and again, because we talked about it, I'd be like, thanks a lot, Mom. Like, I can't go do this or that. So of course there was a little resentment here and there, but it's just, I feel her love so much more now that she's on the other side, which I know it's like when your parents or loved ones that annoy the hell out of you are actually living in here, it's hard to see that. But something that I would just say to your followers, if they're going through a tough time with a loved one, it's because they're wrapped in their own story and their things, right? And so I'm sure they do love you. And when they do pass on, maybe that's when you'll feel it, right? Maybe you're just not going to feel it right when they're here. But in that healing process and what helped me and why I feel like her death was a gift. It was her last gift that she gave me, because I was so in this go hamster wheel, do everything for everybody. And, just moving so fast in life. And then when she passed away, I did go for the first few months, because I guess, you know, I was in that denial phase of grief. And I eventually, after a couple months, I stopped and I was like, I have to go through a healing process myself. And through that healing process, I was able to just slow down, reconnect with myself, which had then opened up my heart and my intuition so much more, to where, like I said, I feel these connections from her. And then I started to focus on where my business is now, more holistic, more physical, still bringing in that movement and fitness, but incorporating more of the mental and spiritual realms, modalities into the work that I do now with clients. Because I think that we live in this mindset where we're constantly reaching out for what's outside of us. Like, you know, looking at what other people have, or, oh, maybe this person's going to think this of me if I don't do it this way, and all that, like always seeking from the outside. But you need to come back like home to you, and to like what lights you up inside, what makes you feel like, hell yes, like that's what I want to do. And so that's more so what my programs now are about, rather than just fitness. And my mom's been with me through the whole thing, for sure.
That's awesome. So I didn't want to butt in anywhere. I do have a few questions, but I mean, I appreciate you being open and sharing like that whole journey, which got you to where you are today, you know, obviously. So as a mother, two, right? You said two?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Going back to, you know, how your mother was to you, are you finding yourself to be more responding different than being reactive when they might be doing something bad or whatever, you know? I'm just asking this, you know, are you trying to change how you are as a mother, as you saw maybe your mother to you, totally different? And then that way you have a better relationship with them, growing up and, as you get older too.
Yes. So, a couple things. Something that I knew I was never going to do was whenever I would ask my mom for something or to do something or to go somewhere, she would just say no. And I would ask why. And she would say, because Y is a crooked letter. And I'm like,
That's a
okay.
good one.
So I'm like, no, like I need an explanation. So
Yeah.
that's one thing definitely for my boys. If I say, no, you can't do this, or you can't have that, or whatever, I do give them an explanation, because I feel like I want them to know that I hear them and that I understand that they want to do XYZ, or they want some toy or whatever it is, because I feel like that made me feel like I was shut out. Like just whatever I wanted or whatever I cared about was just a straight no. And I don't know if it was like, back in the day, that's just kind of what parents did. It was just like, no. And so now yes, that's one thing that I do different, because I want them to feel heard. And then the other things that I do differently is my kids do breath work. My kids are and they're boys too. So I had a sister, so I always wanted a boy, and I was so grateful when I had my first son. And then when I ended up getting pregnant again, it was another boy. I was like, yes, I love being a boy mom. However, I feel like it's partly my responsibility, because I have boys, for them to be able to open up, show their emotions, show their sensitive side, because I also think that's something just for men being that masculine, like protector. A lot of men shut that stuff out. They shut out that feminine side. Doesn't mean they're feminine, but we all have a masculine, feminine energy. And so I feel like it's my responsibility as a parent to allow for them to show those emotions and to connect and to communicate and to have open communication. And we work together as a team in this family. Like some things I do that my mom did, like we had chores and we have responsibilities, and they have chores and responsibilities. Another thing, I am a yeller. I am a yeller. However, the difference between me and my mom is that my boys, I'll ask them, I'll check in and I'll say, what are things that you like about mom? And they'll tell me. And then what are things that you don't really like about me? And they say, you yell too much. And of course, typical parent answer is, well, the first time I ask you, you don't listen to me. The second time I ask you, you don't listen to me. So now the third time, which is the truth. However, they don't like it. Well, my freaking oldest, he's so smart. I said, okay, how can we figure this out? Like, what can we do? And he's like, Mom, sometimes like genuinely, we don't hear you. And I'm like, okay, fine. He's like, so you need to come like wherever we are and like look at us in the face and tell us what you need or want from us. And I was like, dude, how are you so freaking smart, bro? Like, that's awesome. Okay, I can do that, So that's, again, another thing where back in my childhood, there was no, let's talk about this. It was like the parents' way or the highway. Like, there's no conversation. So, I appreciate that and I respect that. And I feel like they feel respected from me because I take what they say into consideration. I'm going to mess up. And they know that. And when I do mess up, I actually apologize to them, which that did not happen either when I was younger. There was no apologies. It was,
Right.
again, like, I'm your parent. You listen to me. I do everything right. And I think that's why too, when you're younger, you look at your parents as if they're some superhero. At least in my life, I looked at my parents as they were superheroes because, they could do no wrong. And I don't think my boys look at me that way. They know I mess up and they know that I'm human. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized, oh, my mom's a human being and she has her shit that she's dealing with. But I wish I would have known that when I was younger, because then it would have been maybe different, where my boys know, So some things similar in regards to like responsibility, independence, but then a lot of differences in communication and being open and working together as a team and talking things through.
Yeah, I like it. So I have a 13-year-old boy too, and you know, when he's on his games, he's not listening whatsoever. So I can see where your kids are talking about, come see me and tell me what you want, as much as we might do it as a parent, like, but you shouldn't be really yelling into the other rooms, and they shouldn't be either, it should go both ways. But no, that's great. And us as parents getting older and learning new things of how to communicate with kids, because I feel like a lot of kids out there now are not getting that communication and they're just being shut down, and then they feel like they are bad, and when they're not, they're just being talked to appropriately and not, like you said, if your kids came to you and you just yell at them, they're not going to keep coming to you, because they feel like they can't do anything right. No, and then so you shared how you found your husband now and the whole dating process and everything. And it's funny how you mentioned all that when now, like today's age, you're like, nobody's doing anything like that. Like everybody wants that wild, crazy person, and it's just funny. I feel like you went to the old-fashioned way in a sense, where and whereas a lot of people are it's just chaotic, right now.
I know, now that you're bringing that up, I'm like, do people actually walk to people's doors and knock on the door? Now it's all like, people meet each other on, apps or whatever, and then meet up somewhere. Which I actually have friends who have met on apps and they end up getting married, have gotten married.
Sure.
But yes, I would say, I think that my husband and I, we both grew up, although different, right? Midwest versus like New York vibe from where my family's from. But we grew up with the same values. The core values were similar. And I think that's what has helped in making our relationship work all these years. And then also, like, I'm a major communicator. Like, you can't be with me, especially as a intimate partner, without talking and communicating. So I definitely have opened my husband up to communicating more, which has been a good thing. And that's the thing in relationships, you should balance each other out. Where one like lacks, so to say, the other one should lift up there, and then vice versa. So you kind of balance each other out.
And I agree with you there. So I feel like I want to keep going off on this, but today people aren't doing that at all. They're just going to talk to you for a little bit and say, nah, forget it. Instead of trying to figure each other out. And the values, I think the values, what you're sharing is very important, because if you don't have that, then what are you going to have? You're just going to find out later down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The other thing I just want to add to that I've always said is, I truly believe and feel that if you are not healthy in a relationship with yourself, you're not gonna be healthy in a relationship with someone else. Not to say, I mean, we all have our issues. I still have my issues. He has his issues. We're all gonna have our stuff. But if you're not aware of that stuff and you're not willing to like point the finger at yourself and go through a healing journey, like with yourself, then you're screwed in regards to like bringing someone else into all your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you gotta, and that's why I like, in that bad relationship that I had, there was growth and transformation and beauty that ended up coming out of it, because I took that time to really dive deep into like, what did I do wrong? What did I not see? What red flags were coming up that like maybe I was blinded to? Like I started taking a good look at like, how can I do better in the next relationship? And then and also not taking that baggage of all the bad stuff with me and projecting it onto the next person. So definitely like healing yourself a little bit first, and being aware of all your junk that you got going on before you
Right.
try to
Yeah.
take on someone else's junk, like,
Right. Yeah. And communicate, be open about it with whoever you're going to be
yeah,
with.
yeah.
So we'll just jump into this. How do people connect with you, and what do you offer to your clients and stuff, and you know what's the
Yes.
best way for them?
Yeah, so I have a website, www.youarestrongfitness.com. The social profile that I'm primarily on is Instagram. And my handle is youarestrong13 on there. I have a wellness warrior program, which is a 6-week long program to build your individualized holistic fitness plan. So that's where we go in, and there's group coaching calls, and there's different, there's fitness, there's yoga, there's meditation, because the thing is wellness, it's a holistic approach, right? And what works for one person may not work for another, because we have different schedules, different lifestyles. And so throughout that program, in order to become a wellness warrior, we figure out what is going to work for you, so that you feel confident, and that you can like do this into the future, and that it can adapt with whatever's going on in your life. So that is my signature program that I have. And I also do free discovery calls, and I have a free movement and meditation class where we move our bodies. And then at the end, during the cool down, we do a meditation or a breath work. And a lot of people take that class, and it's free, and that have never done breath work or meditated before. And they'll message me and be like, okay, I've never done that before, but oh my gosh, like that was amazing. And that's where like the juicy stuff is, because you connect with yourself and you just get like all these downloads that you're like, wow, like I've had women say, like, I literally had come to me like, I am a warrior, or, they have these little, I call them downloads or golden nuggets that come into their mind because they've silenced all the outside shit out. It's like they're not hearing all that junk from the outside, and they can actually like tune into themselves. And so I love that. But yeah, that's those, there's a lot of different ways that basically the website or Instagram, DM me, contact me, and we can get on a call and see if we're a good fit for each other.
Awesome. Now, is it just women you work with?
Majority is women, yeah, that I work with. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I just got one question to ask you. It's kind of a loaded question, but so what are 3 key things you've learned and used along your journey?
Oh man, 3 key things learned and used on my journey. So first thing that popped into my mind is there is always light in the darkness. Always. No matter what dark place you're in, there's a glimmer there, and you got to find it though. And you got to be willing to find it. Because I think that that's honestly what has helped me, throughout my life and all the things that I've gone through. The other thing I would say is slow down, go with the flow, and connect with your heart and with what's going on inside here. Taking that moment to slow down, go with the flow, and just connect with yourself. And the last thing I would say is find your people and set boundaries with those people who are not on your team, not in your corner, not in the arena with you. It sucks when you have to like let people go, but they might just not be the right person or people for you. It doesn't mean that they're bad or, that they're horrible people. It just means they're not your people. And surrounding yourself with like a ride or die tribe that is cheering you on. Even if you say, you know what, no, I can't go to this because I got to do XYZ. They're not like pissed at you for that or like holding grudges against you. Those are your people. They understand that you need to take care of yourself first. So find those people, cherish them, hold on to them, because they're going to help you along your way in this journey that we're in.
Thank you. And I'm glad you found the light in the darkness, so got you to where you are today. And I appreciate you coming on, sharing your journey. And maybe there's a time we can connect later on sometime and maybe come back and dive in a little bit. I had a few more things, but don't want to keep holding me up here. But Ursula, I thank you for coming on and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.